Hello, my friends. I'm so happy to be with you today. This is kind of a funny slash controversial comment, but as a child life specialist, you either love or hate this specific thing, and that is the consult to help kids swallow their pills. And now let me disclose that we do not hate teaching kids how to swallow pills. That is actually incredibly rewarding and it's absolutely doable and it's really fun when it works. What we don't like about teaching kids to swallow pills is the expectation and referrals that we get from, let's say, a resident who's like, hey, this kid needs to get discharged at 2 p.m. and we're going to write for pills. No, 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 no. That's when we get to do a lot of education about pill swallowing as a skill. That's something that has to be learned over time and not just a trick you can go teach. So, that is my little soapbox about teaching kids how to swallow pills. But to be completely honest with you, it is so fun because it kind of feels like play. And Adina, the child life specialist that I'm going to be talking with today, has her own private practice in child life called Illuminate Child Life. But she's also done so much successful teaching with kids and how to swallow pills that she wants to teach more parents how to do it too. So, we're going to meet with her today. She's going to tell us about her strategy, how she teaches and works with families, and then some of the things she does to help kids be really successful in swallowing pills. I hope you enjoy this different episode, and I'm so excited to introduce you to Adina. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome to Child Life On Call. My name is Katie Taylor. I am a mom and I'm a child life specialist. If you're listening to the podcast today for the first time, welcome, and we want you to know that the conversations we have here are designed for parents whose child has received a medical diagnosis. I know it may feel extremely terrifying and world-changing even, but you're here now, and you're about to hear from another parent who has had the same feelings that you do right now, and they're still standing. They had the courage to come here and share what it was like for them, to hopefully make it a little bit easier for you. I'm so grateful to each and every guest and each and every listener who shows up here, and it's my privilege to host this sacred space. Hey friends, welcome to Child Life On Call. My name is Katie Taylor. I am a mom and I'm a child life specialist. If you're listening to the podcast today for the first time, welcome, and we want you to know that the conversations we have here are designed for parents whose child has received a medical diagnosis. I know it may feel extremely terrifying and world-changing even, but you're here now, and you're about to hear from another parent who has had the same feelings that you do right now, and they're still standing. They had the courage to come here and share what it was like for them, to hopefully make it a little bit easier for you. I'm so grateful to each and every guest and each and every listener who shows up here, and it's my privilege to host this sacred space.
So my name's Adina. I'm a certified child life specialist, and I have been certified since 2017. And I came to child life in a kind of roundabout way. I feel like everyone has their journey of getting there. I wanted to work with kids. I wanted to be in a hospital setting, and I thought about being a doctor, and that felt like a lot of school. And then I thought about social work, and it didn't feel like the right fit. So then I thought about nursing, and again, I loved being in the medical field, but there was still a piece missing. And I must have been chatting with someone and she mentioned child life. And I was like, I got to look into this. And it was exactly what I was looking for. So I started volunteering, and I volunteered for a couple of years in a rehab hospital. And then, I was completing all of my coursework. And I was like, I'm really going to push myself here. I'm going to get my master's in child life. And I started my master's program and slowly learned more about what you have to do to become a child life specialist. And I really wanted to get everything that I could in my training. So I completed 3 practicums, which is not typical, but I was really grateful for the opportunities. So they were in a few different settings, which was really great. And I got a lot of great support from my preceptors, and I got to, see a lot of different procedures and work with a lot of different kids. And I really if I could be a student always, I think I would, just for how much I could learn. And it was really incredible. I did my internship at Cohen Children's Medical Center in New York, and I had a fantastic internship. I talk about it all the time. I loved it. After my internship, I came home. I actually got engaged my second week of internship. My now husband was like, oh, I was thinking about proposing in the hospital lobby. And thankfully, my sister talked him out of that because I was like, I'm really glad you didn't
So
do that.
romantic.
So romantic, but I might have said no if he did it there. So he did. So he didn't do that, which was great. And we got engaged. I finished my internship, came home, got married, and then I studied for my exam, took my exam, and thankfully, not long after, started my first job at Children's National Medical Center in DC. And I worked in outpatient surgery. It was very intense for my first role. I had a great co-specialist who, really held my hand as I learned the ropes of working in outpatient surgery. We had 60, 70, 80 patients coming through a day. So we really worked together to, split the units, make sure that we saw every kid who needed to be seen. So that was, a lot of really great experience for my first role. I was commuting several hours a day. So ultimately, I wanted something a little closer to home and got started at Sinai Hospital, which is a little community hospital right around the corner from me, as the Maddie Miracle Cancer Foundation Child Life Specialist. And just a little plug for Maddie Miracle, which does incredible work supporting child life specialists and the psychosocial needs of kids. Definitely worth checking out their website. So I worked primarily with oncology patients and I absolutely loved it. I was inpatient and really got to know the families really well, the team really well. It was a really supportive team. Then COVID came, so things got, shaken up a little bit. And I started working in our outpatient unit. And that was a whole other way to see the kids and their families and kind of, what they brought in each day. And I worked really hard to, develop resources and, really try to improve the hospital experience as much as I could. And my team was really supportive of that. So that's my recent child life experience. I'm now working at home in a very different role. For a lot of reasons, I stepped away from the hospital, but I've stayed very close to child life, and I've been home with my almost 2-year-old for the last couple of years, and she keeps me very, very busy.
Yes. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on today is that I think you do such a great job of combining the clinical expertise of being a child life specialist and the creativity that kind of keeps Adina being Adina within a child life specialist. And I actually think that's kind of the key to this profession. That's what I can speak to. That's my experiences working as a child life specialist. But the more I learn outside of child life is actually what keeps me in child life longer because I'm like, oh, this applies. I can do this. I can do that. And so I wanted you to come on not only as an expert in child life, but just you have such a creative knack for educating people about medical experiences and practices. And specifically today, we're talking about pill swallowing. So take me on the journey of this resource that you created for pill swallowing. And like, did you have an aha moment and you're like, this is a gap that needs to be filled? Or did you have a patient or your own kid? Or how did it look?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I really think we don't know what we don't know. And there's a lot of resources out there, but there's room for so much more. So, how this kind of started is a Facebook mommy group. Someone posted, I need help with my child learning how to swallow pills. I was in the hospital, I was working in the hospital at the time, and I was like, this is what I do. This is what I do for kids. And I, messaged them. I said, I'm a child life specialist. I know you might not have heard of it, but this is what I do. I do this in the hospital for kids all the time. Let's make a time. And I remember that it was during COVID. So we met outside, like outside their
Mm.
house. And it was very cold, but I came, I had my kit and, we ran back inside to get, pudding and water and all of that. And we went through the different parts of learning how to swallow pills with my little candy kit, and she did really well. It was really great, and I learned a lot in that kind of scenario. Her sibling was there, which was fun, but I could have focused more on the kid I was working with, so I learned a lot. And
Yeah.
then it kind of morphed into something else from there because the mom was speaking with her daughter's provider, it was a psychiatrist, and told him about me. So he actually saved me in his phone. He told me this later. He saved me in his phone as Adina pill swallowing. Like that was my name. So from there, he started just kind of sending people my way. So I worked with a few more kids and it was really great. And then I kind of realized that it's not a one and done. In the hospital setting, it would happen that, a kid would maybe come in for a clinic visit and I would work with them then, or they were about to be discharged and, we'd have to work on helping them learn how to swallow pills before they got home. So it was usually kind of, a one session type of thing. We had to work pretty quickly and, hopefully accomplished a lot. But I realized that working with kids on learning how to swallow pills is, I would say, in a sense, like riding a bike, right? It takes practice, it takes falling down, it takes getting back up again, it takes some frustration, but it takes support and practice and skill. And I realized that it takes more than one session. So another family came to me and said, "Can you, help our daughter swallow pills?" I'm asking them what kind, what size, and this was a really big one. And this was, one of these, medications that gets kind of gummy if you don't like swallow it right away.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And I said, this is how we're going to lay it out. We're going to do, 30 minutes once a week. And we're going to come and I'm going to, walk through practicing. So how do we swallow it? Do we look in a mirror? What feels comfortable? Giving a lot of different tips and tricks and trying them out. And then we would do about maybe 20, 30 minutes. And I would say if it starts to get frustrating, that's where we're going to take a break. We're going to take a pause. I'm going to come back next week. But in the week in between, you have homework. And this is your homework, is to practice with the size that you're comfortable with. If you feel like you've got it, move up. So, we start with the little dot sprinkles and then the regular sprinkles. I think some people call them jimmies, which I think is so cute. Or is that
Yeah.
British? I don't know.
Yes,
And,
I heard that too.
and then, move up to a bigger sprinkle and then the nerd, the Tic Tac, the mini M&M, the bigger M&M or the Skittle, and then like the Mike and Ike. So I ended up coming back, I think it was about 6 or 7 times. And every week she had practiced and felt more and more confident. And if there was a point where she got stuck, I would throw in a new tip. I would throw in a new trick. Try this. Let's try that. And I said, it's, we have to strengthen your swallowing muscles, right? And I don't know if that's medically accurate, but that's basically what it is. We have to practice getting comfortable with that sensation. And when her dad sent me the text of, she did it, she got that really hard pill down, I mean, I was ecstatic for her. I was thrilled.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of launched me into creating the book, because I realized it's not just a one and done. And with my family schedule, I don't have the time to, meet with the kids in the way that they need right now. I'm hoping to do
Mhm.
that in the future, but I wanted to create something in the meantime when a family comes to me from this doctor or from any other source. I could say, I have this for you. Try this first. And if it doesn't work, then reach back out to me and we can set up a time. But I wanted to give them something tangible, something they could look at. There's so many great resources online right now that are, a one pager, which is great. And it's a great way to start. But I felt like there was really like that psychosocial piece that I wanted to kind of include in there. So that's where it started. And of course I
I
love Canva, so I had to get extra creative there.
Yes, I love that because for those of you who don't know, child life specialists, when we work in hospitals, it's like the one consult that you either love or you hate. And it's like
True.
room 205 needs a pill swallowing consult. And let me tell you, it's not that we hate it because we hate teaching kids how to do it. It's because the expectation of the adults and the professionals around them is that child life walks in for 10 minutes, says,
Mm-hmm.
"This is how you do it." And then we walk out and we're like, "They're doing it. It's great. No problems at all." And so the expectation, the pressure is so high in the hospital. None of the patients are operating at their highest capacity. They're sick. They're not feeling well. They're not in their normal environment. Their normal food, their drinks aren't around.
Mm-hmm.
And so the expectation that we have to go in so that they can get this one pill for discharge is so much pressure on both the child life specialist and the patient and family themselves. But it is such an important skill because Adina, you've probably seen this too. Like it's either swallow the pill or we have to totally transform this medication that we're not sure we can get and we don't know where to source it from. And so there's a lot at stake. And so I love what you're saying. Like at the beginning, know that this is going to be a long process. Of course, there are those cases, just like with anything, you can figure it out the first few times you try it, but
Mhm.
that's not what's normal. What's normal is practicing and practicing again.
Definitely. And I think setting those expectations of it could be a few weeks, it could be more. If it's less, great. But again, just like really setting those realistic expectations, and it's a skill that everyone is going to need at some point. And I think
Yeah.
you probably know adults who also are like, I can't do it, or it's really hard for me. But we don't know. We hope everyone's going to stay healthy and stay well, but you never know what could come up in life, and this is a skill that everyone needs.
Yeah. I love the idea too of being able to practice with your book that you have when it's not a high stakes moment and there isn't a need to swallow a pill, but you just get comfortable with this is a part of life. This is something that I need to do. This is something that I'm going to practice. I have a personal story. My son has some GI stuff going on and he had to swallow a pill. And so, like me, child life specialist, like I'm putting my sleeves up and I'm like, all right, buddy, we've got this, And I told his pediatrician, I was like, mom, I'm a child. She's like, I know you're a child life specialist, Katie. So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be totally great with this pill. We go home and I'm like, it's pretty small to start with. Long story short, Adina, what ended up working for him is when my husband comes out of the bedroom, sees what we're doing, and goes, have you tried holding your nose? What do you know? He holds his nose and swallows the pill perfectly and has been doing it that way every morning since.
It's
And
amazing.
so I'm just telling you this because there isn't a one size fits all approach for everybody. Some things are going to work for some kids and some aren't. But I think you have to be open to trying a few different things. And sometimes it does take an outside perspective, right? Like whether it's pill swallowing or another parent getting involved or talking with Adina or talking with a child life specialist and just getting other ideas
Exactly. I feel like it's like hiccuping. Like everyone has that kind of secret combination that works for getting
to
rid of
get rid
hiccups.
of it.
And that's funny.
So true.
And that was something that I also really loved about putting this together is I really crowdsourced from different people like what tips and tricks they've used or that worked. So it gives so many options of like if this thing doesn't work, okay, we have something else to try. So it was really fun to put it together and hear the different ideas that people have come up with.
Do you have a specific age in mind that you think kids really start getting it?
I would say school age kids. I geared this towards like second grade and up. I
Okay.
think younger kids could do it. It would just maybe take a little bit longer, take a little bit more practice, which is why, like, doing this as a proactive intervention is really helpful. So you can do it in a non threatening way of, oh, let's make a game and see who can, swallow the candy without, taking a bite of it. Like, and which kid
Mm.
isn't going to be thrilled about candy. So that's why this book is a lot of fun. And I wanted it to be something you could do together, like a parent and a child could do together. So it's, my voice kind of giving it over, but it's how the parent and child can work together to do this.
Walk us through kind of what the different stages of pill swallowing are. Walk us a little bit through like what the book is like and what families can expect when they download it.
Sure. So, first and foremost, it reassures parents that this is something kids may have a hard time with. And it's important as parents to, be calm when we're doing this and that we know that kids, feed off of a parent's reaction. So I write a letter to the parents about, you got this, we can do this.
Side note, I could have used you because the pressure I was putting on myself to get my son to swallow the pill, like I had told the doctor, I'm a child life specialist. We got this. I come home, I like have everything ready. I could have used you in my head being like, this is hard. It's not going to work the first time. It's not going to be perfect.
Yep. Yep. So that kind of leads into the next piece that's relevant for the parents too, but I included like pill swallowing affirmations. So I have a whole page of I'm strong. I can do this. I can be in control of swallowing the pill. Different affirmations for the kids to write down, to repeat. There's a place to write them down and pick and choose the ones that resonate with them. Because there's that mind body connection of if I, speak something and I hear it and I can believe it, I can do it, they'll feel more confident. So that's like the first piece is we're going to hype ourselves up for this. And then obviously there is a checklist of the different materials that you need. And I give a really broad list because it's something, again, for the parents and child to talk about together of, do you think you'll want to try with a cup, with straws, with pudding, with applesauce? And I tried to give as many different options in there that they can talk about together. A disclaimer is you don't need everything, but it's good to have the options to try. And so a lot of these things are things many families already have in the house. And I do want to put a disclaimer, as I'm saying this now, is that I understand that there are kids with different sensory needs, and that can also be a really big struggle in learning how to swallow pills. So just keeping that in mind, that what works for one kid may not work for another. And again, that's why I try to give many options, and I definitely love hearing feedback on it. And I've gotten some good feedback about, my kid doesn't like pudding or applesauce doesn't work, but they definitely love apple juice or whatever it is that helps them.
Yeah.
So there's a whole shopping list in there. And then we talk about getting set up. So washing your hands, finding a comfortable, quiet place. It should be done at a time when it's not, high stress or when the kid is feeling their best. So if they are, feeling great in the morning, do it for 10 minutes before school. If they like to do their, activities in the afternoon, set up 10 minutes in the afternoon. And I really focus on, this should be as much of a stress free activity as possible. So if it starts to feel stressful, that's when you stop. So we kind of set those expectations also, that it really shouldn't be more than, 10, 20, max 30 minutes. Also, you don't want to get a stomach ache from
Yeah. All
following
the
that activity.
swallowing.
So I think that's important too. So then we set up, we have all of our materials, and I start with what I recommend is just like a baseline of how to swallow pills. So it's, you take the pill, you put it in. If it worked, great. And there's a little more detail in there. If it didn't work, try it again. So you try 3 times with each pill, each candy. I should specify it's candy. We're not
Yeah.
doing practice with multiple pills, but they practice, starting with the smallest one. So we're starting with like a teeny tiny dot sprinkle and giving positive reinforcement. You did it. Great job. Let's try again. And working up. And when it gets to the point where it feels frustrating, that's when we stop. So
Mm-hmm.
that is, and I'm pulling it up now because I want to be sure I'm including everything. So we have our affirmations, we have our list, we have our kit, how to build your kit, everything you need. We practice. And then I included a whole page of the tips and tricks that I have gathered from all of my child life friends. And then a page where they can write down their own formula that works for them.
Mm.
So, there's an interactive component to the book so they can really make it their own and, really get ownership over, this is how I like to do it. This is what works for me. These are the steps that I've mastered.
One of the questions I'm thinking about, and I am pretty loosey goosey when I'm in a hospital teaching a child about swallowing candy. What are the boundaries on eating the candy that's available?
Oh, so I give a little leeway for that. Obviously, if it's becoming like, I'm eating 4 candies for every one that I try, we might have to kind of set some boundaries there, but it's right there in front of them. So, we
Yeah.
want it to be a positive experience. And if they're like, "Ooh, I got to practice and I even got to eat candy too,"
Yeah.
I think that
Positive association there.
exactly. I think it's definitely, a good option to give them, you did a great job. Here's a few to munch on when we're done or whatever it is. Again, we don't want to give anyone a stomach ache. So then I include some frequently asked questions, what if I feel confident with the one that I've practiced with? Okay, great. Then you can move on by yourself if you want to, and then the next session you can continue with that one. So really giving them that ownership of, if you feel ready to move on, you should do it. Then we have our shopping list, our checklist. So then I really wanted to give a lot more interactive pieces. So there is a suggested calendar. It's about a 6 to 7 week calendar. It's practicing with one size over the course of the week as you move up. And it also depends how big the pill is that they need to swallow. So they might do it in 3 weeks or it might take them 4, but I gave a guess at a suggested 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think because if it seems like it's taking longer, um, then they may need to either see another specialist, it's possible, or they may need to have a conversation with the provider of, this isn't working. We really tried. We gave it our all. What are the other options? What can we do? And it's a really hard conversation because it means scheduling an appointment. It could mean an expensive medication or option. So I'm hopeful that this gives the confidence in 6 to 7 weeks. That's my hope.
I like setting that expectation though, because it could be done a lot faster, and we've seen it be done a lot faster, but it could also take that long, and that's
Yes.
okay too.
Yes. And I think it really does give the kid the time to know, like, I don't have to do this right away. It takes the pressure off of them. And, they can really take their time with it. And I think also in the situation, like, they need that sense of control of, I'm not ready at this point. I need a few more days. So
Yeah.
that's where I put that kind of thought process in. And then, of course, because we're child life specialists, there's a bingo game in there because we love
Duh.
bingo and child life. So there's a pill swallowing bingo. And that's kind of the gist of it. I also like, and now I'm thinking about it out loud, there's a piece in here to include also of talking about incentives in pill swallowing. And that was something that I talk with parents a lot about, and the parents that I worked with of, you're motivated to help your kid to learn how to swallow pills. You want them to be motivated also. Let's come up with an incentive for them. I'm not above bribery. If it works and it gets them excited, like if they want a scooter or a bike, like, you set the realistic expectations, you set the goal, and they're going to want to work for it. Like they're going to
Yeah.
want to work towards something that they're excited about. And I think that really brings everyone together of, okay, if you want to, get closer to that thing you want, let's take 10 minutes to practice.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And how can people get access to the book? How can they download it? What is that process like?
So right now, I'm going to be hopefully working with Katie to get a page up where people can download it. I want to help parents, I want to help kids, help providers, give a really tangible resource.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And sometimes it is about dissecting these little pieces so that the whole medical experience is easier. This is one less stressor that you can think about because you now have a guide. You have something to go to, a trusted resource that's validated, that it's worked, that comes from a professional who has taught it before to lots of other kids and families. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
As a parent, you want to be there for your child, especially when it comes to their health. But healthcare can be overwhelming and confusing. The good news is child life specialists are experts who help families navigate these challenges. But often our support is only in hospitals. So imagine if you had access to these valuable tools and resources all the time. You would be able to understand medical procedures, explain them to your child, and help them feel less anxious, which also makes you probably feel less anxious. So when your child visits the doctor, has surgery, or has a medical procedure, having the right information and support can make all the difference. You, the parent, can be prepared to answer their questions, calm their fears, and advocate for their needs. Child Life Specialist tools are ready to be in your hands right now through our app Support Spot. All you have to do is go to the iOS or Android store, type in Support Spot. We are giving all of our listeners on this podcast access to the app for just $19.99 for an entire year. You are going to have, I'm not kidding, 7 years worth of resources and support and information that we have been building at Child Life on Call at your fingertips. With these tools in your pocket, you can transform the way your family experiences medical care. Parents, you deserve to be informed and feel confident in your child's healthcare journey. And by having access to Support Spot, you can ensure that your child feels supported and understood no matter what medical challenges come your way. Head to the link in the show notes or go to your app store, type in Support Spot to download it today. For those of